It's week 15 in the NFL. Survivor pools are getting down to the nitty gritty. A lot of other shows have bailed on you, not me. I'm here to get you all the way to the finish line on Scratching and Surviving. All right, guys, we are deep into the NFL season. A wild one again in week 14. So if you survived, congratulations. I myself was eliminated with that Packer loss on Monday night. As you guys know who follow this, I've been in a pool where you had to take multiple picks, 2 picks every week for the last 6 or 7 weeks. I had the Saints and Green Bay was the other option, and eliminated on that Green Bay pick. Now, the smart play would have been not to take Green Bay, would have been get on another team. Now, the other team I would have gotten on probably would have lost. My partners were kind of looking at Houston. They really liked. I did not like that game. Now, we talked about Houston last week. Houston looked like a play that you were going to potentially take when I made the video last week, but things change as the week goes on. With Wilson named the starter, that line dropped all the way down to 3. It was at 6, so they became much less of a possibility of a play. So you really have to pay attention to where these line moves go. I do the video on Wednesdays every week, Wednesday morning, right around 10, 11 a.m. So the video may change, or what I'm saying in the video may be different come Sunday morning when you're looking to put your entries in. That's why you need to leave comments down below, ask me questions, because my opinion on Wednesday may differ come Sunday. But we mentioned how fading Green Bay, and really any team in that situation, especially if you know that the entire pool is going to be on one team. So if you're down to the nitty gritty like we are in most pools, you're down to 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. If somehow you knew all or just about all of them were going to be on one team, it's almost always advantageous to be on another team. When you're heads up, that's when we want to just take the most optimal route left to us. All right, so I did the math for you guys last week on this. You can refer back to last week's video, but just keep in mind, it should be self-evident. If you woke up, if you had a team today, if you took a 3-point favorite today, and then everybody else was on a 7-point favorite, and you had 6 people remaining in your pool, the other 5 had a 7-point favorite. Yes, you're not at the advantage. You don't have the edge as far as you winning your game and them losing their game. But the fact that you can knock 5 people out and then scoop the entire pot with that one win does make it a plus EV play. Again, I did all that math for you guys last week. Refer back to last week's video, and you can see that. Let's jump into the Survivor Grid and see what we've got going on for this week. All right, Survivor Grid. The top teams, as usual, are not going to have all that many people left to take them. The possibilities of you having these teams are minimal. Now, some of you had Miami last week. I know I got messaged by at least one of you. Do I take Miami? And that was a perfect opportunity to take Miami last week. I mean, the fact that they lose that game as a 14-point favorite, extremely unlucky, and the way they lost it is just crushing if you had them. But this is the situation you're waiting. If you were able to hold on to one of these top teams, then there's no better chance, there's no better play than making that play right now. Now, the exception may be if you are in a pool and you've got multiple people left, or even if you're heads up. If you're heads up, you're almost always going to take the best team. Now, when would you not necessarily take the best team? Well, that's if next week's option was even better. So let's just take a look at Kansas City, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Kansas City this week, 8.5-point favorite. When I look ahead, if you look at the Sharp app, guys, and I'm sorry to just always be plugging the Sharp app, but if you go on the Sharp app, you're going to be able to see the future lines as well. You can see next week's lines. It's going to be really important for you when you are trying to figure out exactly who you should be taking each and every week. Now, I believe Vegas is like, or Kansas City over Vegas next week's about a 10-point favorite. And you're going to want to look at the money lines, take the midpoint of that money line, right? You're going to take the money line for Vegas, the money line for Kansas City. Whatever the midpoint is about a good number to take. And then you need to do an implied probability calculation. Real simple. In this case, you're going to be taking a minus money favorite. What you do is whatever that minus money is on that favorite, you then add 100 to it, and that's what you divide that number by. So if they were minus 200, you would do minus 200 divided by minus 300, and that gives you a 67.77% chance of that team winning. So that's the calculation of figuring out favorites on the money line. If you wanted to do it with an underdog, you would simply just do 100 divided by whatever the money line is plus 100. So if you were looking at a plus 200 underdog, you would take 100, divide that by 200 plus 100, which is 300. That gives you a 33.33% chance of winning. So simple way there to figure out the implied odds. Now, when we look at this week, like I said, if you are down to heads up, you are always taking the most optimal route. But you'll want to look, is the most optimal going to be, let's say you had Kansas City and the Rams as choices this week. You don't have San Francisco, you don't have Miami, neither does your opponent. But your opponent only has the Rams. So do I go ahead and do I just counterfeit him on the Rams this week? Because more than likely he's going to take the Rams and then go to and then take Kansas City next week, or do I take Kansas City this week? Now, you want to take the most optimal, but you also have to use some game theory here. Now, the most optimal in the next 2 weeks, let's just see which one that is. Now, they may kind of line up. Now, if I took the Rams as a 7-point favorite, approximately 72, 73% chance to win their game, and then I look to next week at Kansas City, and they're going to be closer to an 80% chance of winning. Now, if I took Kansas City this week, right, with similar, close to an 80% chance of winning, then let's say we're both going to have to, none of us have Kansas City, Philly, Buffalo, maybe Denver's available to us, and we figure that we both might be on Denver. So you have to make that determination. Am I better off here with Kansas City against New England with my opponent having the Rams, right? Is that where I'm going to differentiate myself and then have to come up with maybe counterfeiting him on Denver next week if we both advance? Or am I at a more advantageous position to counterfeit with the Rams and then take Kansas City next week? I would say you are in a much better situation by trying to counterfeit your opponent this week, because this Rams option is not a terrible one. And then when you look ahead and you see what they have, if they've taken Kansas City, Philly, and Buffalo, well, that makes it a much, much different play here, taking Denver as opposed to you having Kansas City, right? So you are at a huge advantage in the pool, much bigger advantage this week in week 16 than you would be in week 15 by taking Kansas City now. So there are some advantages here that you may want to counterfeit until you get the most optimal advantage. Now, when I say counterfeit, you say, well, what if he doesn't take the Rams? Well, if he can't take San Francisco, Miami, Kansas City, he's got the Rams available to him, and he goes to any other option. Again, stay on top of the lines. But as of right now, if he goes to any other option, well, that's fine. He's giving you the advantage here, heads up. So you'll take that. So you're going to take the Rams. If he goes the smart way, he's going to take the Rams as well and counterfeit you. But you're going to have a huge advantage come next week with Kansas City, right? So we wouldn't take Kansas City in this situation. Now, if I'm in a large pool, I may have to reconsider. Maybe I'll just take Kansas City. But I even like this counterfeiting here and then having that huge advantage over the entire pool. It's going to work in a similar way. We're kind of in a situation here where, for the most part, we're going to be taking or giving the same advice for all people, unless you're down to like the 3 or 4, like I was saying, in which case nobody could take San Francisco, no one could take Miami, no one could take Kansas City. All 4 of us have the Rams left. Then this is an opportunity where you have to look possibly at another team because the math says so. Now, do you think going to the other team here off of the Rams this week is better than doing it next week when you think everyone will have Denver? Perhaps next week would be a better option where you can maybe move to a Green Bay, or you take the Rams next week, right? So you're going to make that same determination like we did if we had Kansas City as our play. So there's going to be a lot of game theory involved here, but just understand the fewer the people, the more optimal we want to play it each and every week. So that's my suggestion here for this week. We're going to be looking at the Rams more than likely, and you can see their EV here is not great because almost 30% of people are taking them, right? And the EV on San Francisco, Miami, Kansas City is huge because not many people can take them, and they're a huge favorite. All right, so that's what we want to be looking at this week. Now, if you are going to drop down and you want to get down to one of these other teams. Let's say this is the week you want to fade the chalky pick because you think your three opponents are more than likely going to be on the Rams. You're one of the four, and you're going to make a stand this week, and you're going to go off the Rams, and you're going to look to one of these other teams. Now, the team that most people are looking at is Atlanta. I would suggest fading Atlanta here in just about every format. If you've got any other team available to you, like that's a 3-point favorite, Green Bay would be an interesting option. All right, Cleveland, if you have them available to you, Cincinnati, if you have them, whoever you have available to you, getting yourself off of Atlanta is going to be advantageous. So now you really give yourself a chance to not be counterfeited with the Rams, which most likely at least 2 of the 4 in your pool, if in our hypothetical, are probably going to be on the Rams. Maybe the other person goes Atlanta. Well, then you kind of defeat the purpose by taking Atlanta here. 60% chance of winning when you've got all these other teams with about the same percentage chance of winning, if you have that option available to you. I think if you don't have any of these 3-point favorites available to you, but you do have the Rams, I think then you have to just counterfeit with the Rams and hope that you move on, and then look for that opportunity maybe next week to get off of the team that everybody's going to be on. So it's my advice to you guys for this week. It really becomes a determining factor in these pools here. It really becomes who you've got available to you, who your opponents have available to you. So what I need you guys to do is comment down below exactly where you're at. We're going to be talking about hedging quite a bit as well. If you took my advice and were on Green Bay last week and you did not hedge, you missed out on an opportunity. You should be taking these hedges against the spread. Last week you had a chance to, if the Giants don't drive down there and kick that game-winning field goal, you would have won against the spread, winning your hedge bet, and you would have advanced with Green Bay, which is the ultimate situation. Now, let's say you're in a pool with 3 people left, $30,000 pot, so you have an equity of $10,000. This week, how much will we be looking to hedge? Now, if we've got 4 weeks left, then maybe you're thinking, well, I'm going to hedge like $2,500 on this, but you can easily lose the next 4 weeks on your hedge bets and win each week on the survivor pool while everyone else in the pool advances. It's unlikely, but you could get yourself in a situation where you actually, if you bet $2,500 each week, you lose money. Let's take this scenario where I took $2,500 this week. I lose, but I advance. So does everyone else. The following week, I bet another $2,500. I lose and advance. I'm now down $5,000, right? Let's say I bet another $2,500 in the week 17 game. I win my hedge bet. I get knocked out of my pool. I only get $2,500 back. I'm now down $2,500. That's not what we're looking to do on a hedge. So we need to bet a fraction of that. So I'd be looking at something in the maybe $500 range to start out with these next few weeks. So maybe my hedge would be $500 this week. I lose. I then, and let's say worst case scenario, everyone else advances with me. I still have $2,500 in equity. Maybe the following week I make a $1,000 bet. If I lose that, now I'm down $1,500. Plus the juice, maybe I'm down $1,650. But I still have that $10,000 in equity with 2 weeks to go. I can then double up my bet again. I can bet for, let's say, $3,000, or I don't want to go the full double up. Maybe I go $2,500. So now I make a $2,500 bet. If I win that bet and get knocked out of my pool, at least I net about $1,000. I lose that. Right now I'm down to I lose $4,000 in hedge bets, but I've still got $10,000 in equity, so I've still got some cash to play with, and I can at least bet now enough to cover my hedges, or if I want to guarantee myself a little bit of a profit, I could bet a little bit more than that. You could play around with the numbers. Now, it's unlikely that you're going to continue to win, lose every single hedge bet against the spread, and advance. It's unlikely that situation is going to happen, but you have to account for worst case scenario. And worst case scenario is that you lose more on your hedges than you'd actually win back, and everyone advances as well without losing. So you never increase your equity. So you've got to keep all those things in mind. I can work with you guys on what you should be doing as far as hedge amounts and the type of hedges you should be making, all down in the comments. So please leave a comment down below. I love helping you guys out, getting you all the way to the finish line. Let's make some Christmas money. And guys, if you did win your pool and you didn't let me know, you got to let me know down in the comments. If you are enjoying these videos, we're getting down to the end of the season, and you have not subscribed yet, be greatly appreciated if you could subscribe and like these videos. And as always, let's get that money. Good luck, guys. I will see you next week.